death and how basically how nothingness is not an option, and how life as something in the universe is obligatory.
Why do you think that?
Why do I think that? Okay, well, first of all, I'm an atheist, so my view is that I accept that the self, the self as in you, the thing that's created by your biology, the self is a creation of the universe, right?
In a manner of speaking, yeah.
Right? There's no soul, right?
Right.
I mean, I'm saying, sure, there may be a soul, but I'm coming from, my theory is based on the assumption that there isn't a soul, because I'm an atheist, and so I accept that there isn't a soul.
Okay.
Right? Okay, so based on that, if we are actually, as Carl Sagan put it, we are the universe experiencing itself, or a way for the universe to know itself. Mm-hmm. That's what he said. And he also said that the universe is everything that ever was and ever will be, right? So if you take those two things and you put them together, the result is there is no other thing than the universe, as far as being an atheist goes. So the only possibility is to have an experience of life as one of the endless organisms that are produced by the universe. So after you die, the only possibility, if it is true that there is no soul and there is no afterlife, then the only possibility is that experience will be experienced as an organism in the universe, as an insect or as a human or as something. It has to be something. You can't have nothing by definition. So,
well, it starts getting really weird when you start getting small. I suggest was a Universe from Nothing by Krauss actually talked about nothing and how things pop in and out of existence.
Yeah, you kind of have to start defining nothingness. Like, yeah. Are you talking about a vacuum? Well, even a vacuum isn't as empty and nothing is.
Well, I go back to the Greek definition or understanding of nothing. So there is no it to discuss, actually. So to me, nothing is the utter absence of anything. So okay. if it is the utter absence of anything, then it is unexperiential, and it actually, by definition, doesn't exist.
Well, but we can still do our best to describe. I mean, so the thing that kind of sticks in me, while the rest seems nice. I mean, I love the poetic, nature of the statement that we are the universe experiencing itself. I wouldn't. I've seen people read into it like that there was intent there. And when you made the statement, it has to be this way, that's where my skeptic kind of alarm pops up and I go, does it have to? Or is that all that we know? If the universe were to, if we were to have the Big Bang or whatever started the universe and all of that again, would we have life? Maybe. I don't know. Hold on just a second. Give Thomas a second.
When you start talking about, like, you think that there's no such thing as nothingness, well, we can talk about nothingness conceptually because we know what matters, we know what something is, we know what the universe is to a large extent. And so we can think of, like, the opposite of that. We can think of, what would it be like to not have that? Now, as far as whether or not there is something outside of this universe, if space is infinite, well, if space isn't nothingness, if even a vacuum has something in it, then I don't know. Like, is kind of the all I can really resort back to is I don't know what's outside this universe. There could be other universes. I cannot make a positive statement. I cannot say that outside of that there ever is anywhere where there's absolute nothingness. Maybe there is.
Or is it even possible that that statement outside of this universe even makes sense? You know,
maybe not. Or, you know,
if we follow the model that everything was condensed into this infinitesimal, you know, at the moment of the Big Bang, or just, you know, that when you say outside of it, you can't, because everything that is in there.
Well, and that's where I probably should refer to it as outside this cosmos, because the cosmos would incorporate the multiverse. But maybe the multiverse has an edge or a boundary or a barrier. Maybe there's complete nothingness outside of that. Maybe it goes on infinitely. Maybe it loops back in on itself. Then, you know, you start getting into this realm of physics where you can conceptualize it and you can put it down mathematically and you can think about alternatives. But we don't really have any way to measure it. We don't really have any way to travel outside this universe, outside of our cosmos. And so I don't know. You might be right. Maybe there isn't such a thing as nothingness. Maybe there is.
My main point is that maybe I shouldn't say nothingness. Maybe I should say experience versus non-experience. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like the experience of life versus not having that.
Okay.
So no matter the scenario, whether or not we have souls or not, my conclusion is that it's not me that's going to be the one experiencing it, but there has to be an experience that, for a lack of better words, takes precedence over a lack of an experience.
You sound like Brian Greene, the physicist.
Okay.
And the reason the reason I say that is because he looks at the universe in terms of infinities. And if you can have, like, there's two different ways that you can think about this. Is one, that our universe is infinite, and that outside of the observable universe, which is all the light that has reached us so far since the start of the Big Bang, outside of that it just keeps going and going and going. And when you think of things in terms of infinity, then you go far enough, eventually you're going to find a world exactly like ours. You're going to find someone exactly like you who, instead of eating cereal for breakfast, had pizza. You know, you're going to find every possible scenario. If that's the case, then yes, eventually, you know, life would be inevitable, because as unlikely, if it's possible at all, which the fact that we're here shows that it is, if it's possible to have conscious life, then eventually you would have it, even if it's astronomically small odds. The other infinity would be if you have so many different variable universes that are different shapes, that have different constants, that have different laws of physics, that eventually you're going to have one within there that has the properties that make life possible, and eventually you're going to find a scenario like ours. And it would be the same type of thing. You'd have you existing in an infinite number of situations and scenarios, and yeah, it would be inevitable.
Well, and we can't even fully posit that, because we don't know if life can be created, or life can happen with a completely different set of circumstances. There can be life that we don't know can happen with different elements or different. It's wild.
Well, you can have certain scenarios that are slightly different, where you would have a higher probability, a higher chance of life. And an example, you talked about Krauss earlier. Oftentimes, creationists will point to the cosmological constant, and they'll say, look, if this number was a tiny bit off, you wouldn't have life on Earth. But if it was exactly precisely 0, then you would have more life that you would expect to pop into existence. So like you see these little variables, these little scenarios where, like, yeah, you can actually expect to have life under different circumstances. Sometimes it would be more likely, sometimes it would be less likely, sometimes it would be impossible, but I don't think that we necessarily know all of the situations under which it would or wouldn't be possible.
Yeah.
So.
I feel like you might not be understanding completely what I'm saying. I was wondering, would I be able to read something short that I wrote?
Probably not on this episode, but you can share it on the Reddit so we can go over it together.
It's like seriously just one small paragraph.
I've been told that before. I'll give you the chance. If it starts going onto a page, though, I'm gonna. But go for it, man.
I'll be quick.
Okay.
If the universe is all that there is, and if there are no souls and there are no supernatural afterlife, then it follows that because we are but a product of the universe, that it produces the sensation of the self. And because it goes on after we as individual organisms die, that means that there is no alternative than to be an organism. Life is obligatory. So that is like the summary of it. I'm done reading.
Okay.
It's a metaphysical statement of in the same way that you and I and everybody who's alive, we didn't have a choice to be born. We were the consequence of those organisms that lived before us. And it's just like a deterministic, on this deterministic trajectory of life producing life, and inevitably, because the universe is all that there is, we're forced into having an experience, whether we didn't
whether we like it or not. I don't know. I just it feels like a hard statement that I would really, really want to think about for a while, because any time where you say we have no choice but X, then what you're leaving out is we need to explore what other choices there are. And I don't have the...
we're getting deep into the realm of determinism and
yeah.
free will, and we could do an entire episode just on those topics.
Which are things that I absolutely love. Let's engage on the Reddit, actually.